Once upon a time, in a town folded into a wide river bend where the water moved slow enough to remember names, there lived a mapmaker named Rowan. Rowan's shop smelled of ink and rain. His fingers were stained with graphite and the soft dust of paper. He made maps for fishermen who needed to find hidden shoals, for bakers who wanted the quickest route to the mill, and for children who liked to trace secret paths with their small, impatient fingers. Rowan kept a quiet rule. Every map he drew included one small, invisible line of promised line that he never sold and never showed. He believed that maps were not only for finding places, but for remembering how to return. The town had been changing. A new road had been cut through the hills, bringing strangers and new shops, but also a kind of hurry that made neighbors forget to knock on each other's doors. People measured success by speed. Who could deliver bread faster? Who could fix a roof quicker? Who could get to the city first? The old rhythms, afternoon tea on porches, the market's slow bargaining, the way children learned to fish by watching rather than asking began to fray. Rowan watched this with a quiet worry. He loved the town's crooked lanes and the way the river kept secrets. He feared that if everyone learned only to hurry, they would lose the art of staying. One autumn evening, a storm came that the town had not expected. The river, swollen from distant rains, rose and pushed at the banks. The new road, built without the old town's memory, funneled water toward the market and the low houses by the quay. Boats that had been moored for years snapped their ropes and drifted like tired toys. In the chaos, a teacher named Amaya, who had been collecting books for her students, found her small boat overturned and her satchel of lesson plans floating away. She ran along the quay, calling for help, but the storm's voice was louder than any single shout. Rowan, who had been closing his shop, saw the water and the teacher and grabbed a coil of rope. He did not think of speed. He thought of the river's old ways. He tied a line to a post and waded into the cold, steadying a boat so Amaya could climb in. Others followed. The baker with a lantern, the carpenter with a plank, the children with their small, stubborn courage. They formed a chain from the quay to the market, passing people and goods hand to hand. The town's hurried new road had not taught them how to hold one another. The storm taught them anyway. After the water receded, the town's losses were counted: a collapsed stall, a roof that needed new shingles, a rowboat with a split hull. But something else had been repaired that the storm could not touch: the habit of showing up. Neighbors who had once been strangers now shared tools and stories. Amaya's books were soggy but salvageable. The carpenter dried pages and sewed bindings, and the baker offered a warm place to sort them. Rowan's maps, which had once been sold for coin, were now used to mark where help was needed and where people could find shelter. The invisible promise lines he had drawn began to matter. They reminded people where to return when they were lost. In the months that followed, the town learned to weave small practices into daily life. A retired sailor started a morning watch to check the moorings after heavy rain. A seamstress taught a weekly class on mending, and the children learned to patch sails and shirts with the same careful hand. The market, which had once been a place of quick transactions, became a place where people lingered to trade not only goods, but time and advice. The new road still brought hurry, but the town had found a counter-rhythm, a slow, steady way of being that made room for mistakes and for help. Rowan's invisible promise line became a story told at the bakery and the school. Parents told their children that maps were not only for finding treasure, but for remembering who would help you carry it home. Amaya's students learned to make lists of what their families needed and to trade chores for lessons. The carpenter's apprentice, a boy named Mateo, learned that a plank could be more than wood. It could be a bridge between two people who had never spoken. The town's measure of success shifted from speed to steadiness. Years later, when a new bridge was proposed to replace the old stone crossing, the town argued not only about cost and design, but about memory. Some wanted a sleek, fast bridge that would carry cars and hurry. Others wanted a bridge that would hold a market and a place to sit. Rowan, now older and with ink lines at the corners of his eyes, drew two maps. One that showed the fastest route across the river and one that showed the places where people had helped each other in storms and in small, ordinary ways. The town chose the second map. They'd built a bridge with wide planks and benches, a place where people could stop and talk and leave a lantern on a winter night. It was not the fastest bridge, but it was the one that remembered how to return. Rowan never stopped drawing maps, and he never stopped adding his quiet promise line. He taught Mateo and others to look for the small marks that meant more than distance. the bench where an old woman fed pigeons, the stoop where a young father read to his child, the shop that always kept a pot of soup for someone who needed it. The town's children grew up learning that a map could be a promise, and that promises were kept not by grand speeches, but by daily acts, by showing up with a plank, by sharing a loaf, by sitting with someone who was afraid. One spring, when Rowan's hands had slowed and his shop smelled more of memory than ink, a traveler came through the town. She had been to many places and had seen many roads that promised speed and efficiency. She stopped on the bridge and watched people pass, neighbors carrying groceries, a child chasing a dog, an old man tying a ribbon on a lamppost. She asked why this town felt different from the others she had known. A woman who had once been a stranger but was now a friend pointed to the mapmaker's shop and said, "Because someone kept drawing the lines that tell us where to come back." Rowan smiled and handed the traveler a small folded map with a tiny invisible line drawn across the margin. "Keep it," he said. "If you ever feel lost, follow the places where people stop to help. They will show you the way home." The traveler folded the map into her pocket and walked on, but she carried the lesson with her, that speed can take you far, but steadiness will bring you back. The town continued to change. New shops opened, old roofs were replaced, and children grew into adults who taught their own children how to mend and how to wait. The river kept moving, patient and true, and the town learned to move with it. Wisdom: the deepest maps are not drawn to show the shortest path. They are drawn to show where people will meet you when you need them. A life measured by small, steady promises will always have a way back. If you liked this story, don't forget to like and subscribe.